Start. All right. Well, welcome everyone. We'll wait just a few minutes as everybody is filtering in. Welcome to our second webinar series for the agroforestry regeneration communities, and very excited about today's talk. I'm going to play around and hope that we don't have any technical difficulties, but I'll have to ask my colleagues to help with things as I don't see everything at the moment as I'm in my screen sharing. So welcome. Let's see. We have 88 participants on so far. That's just wonderful. Thank you, everybody. I know you're calling in from around the world, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am going to ask my presenters if they could please mute themselves until it is their turn to speak. That would be very helpful. So thank you. And yeah. Just as we're waiting for more participants to join us, I just wanted to welcome everybody. And John Rulak, my colleague who's on the call and going to be presenting later on, he and I started ARC, the Agroforestry Regenerative Communities, over a year ago to really help build a network of support in the global agroforestry movement, and to help spread this education and invite others to learn about these ancient practices and how they can have a huge impact in today's modern world. And I'm very thankful for a recent opportunity to get to tour some of the projects that we've been supporting in Guatemala. And so throughout the webinar, please do put your questions into the chat. There's also a specific Q&A section. And after each set of speakers, we will go to those questions. So thank you for posting them there. And we do invite you to learn more about our work and to join us and to share about your work at our website, agroforestryrc.org, for agroforestry regenerative communities. And that's where we have our allies application so that you can share the projects you're doing and become part of our community. But yes, I had the very unique opportunity to tour some of our more remote villages that we're helping to support in Guatemala with Sean and Nictê Dixon Sullivan, and we will be hearing from Nictê shortly. But it was just such an amazing experience to get to learn from the technicians that are sharing these practices and from the women in particular, and learning how they are using agroforestry to feed their families, to create economic opportunities for their villages, and to restore the ecosystems that they are dependent on. And so today we are very lucky to be blessed by some amazing speakers. And as I said, we really created this as a network, and I'm very touched by my connections I have to each of the speakers. Dr. Annabelle Ford is a professor at my Almirada in my hometown of Santa Barbara in California. So very excited to get to learn about the amazing work she's been doing in Guatemala and Belize and Mexico. And I have been following Dr. Ranil's work for over 10 years through a mutual friend that we have, and have just always been so impressed by his forward thinking and innovative aspects that he will be sharing with us. And just recently, Nictê Milhose Dixon has become a very dear friend over this last month as I got to visit her in Guatemala. And she's also the mother of one of my favorite little humans, baby Melky. And so we're very excited to get to hear from these speakers, as well as then in the second half of our webinar today, we will get to hear directly from some of the projects we've been working with over this last year in Africa, from Tanzania to Malawi and Uganda. So thank you so much again, everybody, for being here. And I'm going to bring it back to open it up and see if Dr. Annabelle has been able to join us yet. I don't think that she has been moved over. So Ranil, I think we're going to go ahead and start with you, and hopefully Dr. Ford will be able to join us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Hannah. Let me start now. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, I better get to screen sharing. Do I have the share screen? And there. How's that?
Perfect. Thank you.
Great.
So just as a brief introduction to you, I am really excited to hear about the biocurrency that you're going to be sharing and how we can really learn the importance of nature and how to include it in our world. And you've been involved in this work since 1971, when you were one of the students at UC Berkeley in California, with the first organic agriculture class there that did some guerrilla work to tear up the streets and put in the first organic garden. So
in there, babe.
And then you've been doing amazing work around the world. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure. All right, folks. I'd like to talk to you about analog forestry, which is what we do, or a similar thing. But before we do that, to understand a forest, we have to understand the totality of it, what it is, if we are going to act and create things like a forest. Forests were made possible by trees, which in turn were made possible by the discovery of lignin. Before lignin, no trees, which also made possible an organic soil, because without lignin, no soil ecosystem. So this is a completely interlinked thing, the soil and the tree, and this is something I really would like everybody to begin considering. All right, now the organic component of the soil is the ecosystem that provides energy to sustain the plants that live upon it. And when we are designing, and when we are thinking, and when we are restoring, these are really important things to consider. Now, the forest basically is the end process of a process called serial succession. You know, you cut a forest, leave it alone, there's bare ground, then there's herbs and scrubland and forest. Okay, but what is important for all of us who are working in forests is that tree species of a forest account for less than 1% of the biodiversity of such formations. They're critical in maintaining total diversity, but the tree species is 1%. And today, most reforesting and most restoration, we basically are looking only at the trees and planting trees and using tree species. We have to learn to grow beyond. Now, as trees mature, when they plant trees, and as they mature, they increase the number of microhabitats for other species that form within the complex architecture of maturity. You know, these are branch internodes, leafy canopies, dry cavities, phyllotelomata. These are these water holes in the trees, roots, etc., etc. So we have to consider as the forest of the tree is maturing, is creating more and more and more opportunities for diversity to come in if we design it right. And this is the important thing now. And in addition to that, we have to look at the roots, as I said. The roots of the plants are essential to grow and maintain a living soil. All tree roots produce up to 20 to 30% of their total root weight as exudates that go into the soil. And they have a huge amount of extension through their fungal hyphae. I'll talk about it a little later. Now, this is important because the root exudates of the plants sustain the living soil ecosystem. A good living soil ecosystem, 1 gram of soil may contain enough to cover my thumbnail, just about that much. 1 gram will have in it 1 to 2 billion individual bacterial cells. Sharing the same gram are the actinomycetes with populations of 100 to 200 million, and with fungi with kilometers of microscopic, but end-to-end kilometers of hyphae. All this adds to the soil. Now, the work on bacteria alone says in the upper 15 centimeters of soil, there's about 500 to about 1,000 kilograms per hectare. If you add everything else, we come up to almost 7,000 kilograms a hectare. Now, these tree roots that we're talking about providing the exudates link up with hyphae, fungal hyphae that reach out from the roots, or bacteria that colonize around the roots, basically doing the job of chemical transformation, which is the critical thing to keep soil alive. And around 90% of all land plants are in mutual and beneficial relationships with fungi. These could be totally different species, but they're connected through the fungal network that goes in. These are the things we are learning about the forest and the soil. And these are the things that we have to use in the design of what we are going to be doing if we want to stay sustainable. Now, this gives us all this knowledge is there with the forest. How much is knowledge is utilized in the current approaches to forestry? We have a natural forest. Then we have the traditional forestry. Non-crop species are not critical in design. Structure and function not vital. Plant the trees and all that. You can use native and exotic. Creating a tree-dominated ecosystem with economic output is the goal. And we have the industrial, which is monoculture, and the polyculture systems. With analog forestry, we look at non-crop biodiversity is critical. That is what we don't eat, what we can't, it could be a butterfly, a bird, a lizard, an epiphyte. Non-crop biodiversity is critical in the design, and structure and function are vital. You have to do this. And copying the original mature vegetation structure has to be done with analogous species is the goal. So that's what differentiates that. And there's indigenous forestry, where you use only the native forest, only keep the native forest, and just manage the native forest by increasing populations of certain productive species. I'm sure Annabelle will talk to that. So that's basically how I think forestry, approach to forestry is spread out. Now let me tell you about analog forestry. It's a silvicultural system. We want to create a tree-dominated ecosystem that is analogous to the original ecosystem in architectural structure and ecological functions. These are the critical things: the architectural structure of the mature forest of your area and the ecological function of the trees within it. And now let me demonstrate, excuse me. And then it operates with 12 principles. These are the principles. And what I will do is basically, I will talk to 3 of these principles. So you see how this is done. The rest you can always visit the webpage and we'll tell you all about this. Okay, observe and record. That means if you go to some area, the mature old forest of that area is the ecosystem with the greatest amount of experience in that climate. That is the most sustainable. So therefore, it gives us a model. So we look at that model, try to understand the architecture of the model, and try to reproduce it. That is the first step, principle 1. And it works like this. See, observe and record. So in a mature forest, we look at the forest, we look at all the visible forms of growth. That is epiphytes, the palms, the rhizomatous plants, everything has to be observed. But when you do that, then how on earth do you record them? Because it's such a complex system. Well, we use this system. It's a physiognomic formula. It's a method of having symbols. We can look at this later, but this looks at the growth forms of the trees and plants. then we look at the structural categories and the coverage. And out of that comes a physiognomic formula. Now, this forest here is coded in this physiognomic formula here. If you had to write it, we had to write all this stuff. All this stuff is just coded in shorthand here. And this is very useful for all of us who go out and start looking at forests to understand forests and to teach children also how to understand forests. Then when you're going to do analog forestry, what you do is you go to your target area and you do a similar thing in your target area. And your target area then comes with another physiognomic formula. You compare one to the other and you see what is missing. And the missing thing is, it's called a gap analysis. The missing units are what you require to bring back into this area so that this area starts behaving more like the original forest that was there once before. Now, this is principle one. Of course, we'd love to sort of talk more about this, but since there's no time, do come to our webpage or our site and we'll talk. And next is understand and evaluate. So once you understand your structures, you say, okay, I've got V5s, these tall trees, okay, and I have to replace the tall trees. Now, what are the useful things that are V5s that will give me a crop? So you go here and you look, here, and your computer looks down this list and chooses all the V5s and then you go back and see what are they? Are they native? Are they endemic? Did they give you fruits, nuts? What happens? What's the family name? Sorry, the name. And this goes on. We have 26 variables on the seeds, on the roots, how it grows. So if you have this database, then you can begin designing for your area to be analogous or similar to the natural system, but giving you or the environment the return that you have designed for. Then principle 3 says know your land, which means understand, map your land and understand all the features on it. First, understand the current state, then design for the future. You can do it like this physically, or we can go to Google, get Google Maps and start overlays, and overlays are very easy. You know, biodiversity indicator species or land use or composting, the same land. We have different overlays. We use these overlays then to do our planning. Next, here's an example of analog forestry application here in Sri Lanka. This here is the native forest. This is the analog forest that mimic this. This is 100% all native species. This has 90% exotic species. But what has happened is, as this matures, 80% of the faunal biodiversity has begun to come back because we have created the microhabitats and we have created the conditions right for biodiversity to return. And when we looked at it, and also, if we are looking at, for instance, the growth, and you're in the early area or in on the second or third serial stage, here are some of our analogs. These are the analogs with annuals, slight perennials. These are analogs of about the third serial stage with palms. So this is how you design a system depending on what state of the serial succession of your area you would like your land to be. Now, when we looked at an area in the analog forest, we looked at the organic carbon content. This is what it looks like. We looked at the bacterial colonies. This is what it looks like. So we are very pleased. It seems that if you mimic a forest and follow your normal natural forest, you really get a lot of benefits into your ecosystem. Now, okay. The other thing when we're doing this thing is the question of biodiversity. At the moment, the movement of biodiversity across landscapes can only happen like this if there's a physical corridor for them to move. But if there's farmers and people or cleared land, then creating a farm that is analogous to these patches that's separated here, making a farm analogous, what happens is all these little patches have what's called an ecological field. And that is certain animals and plants can move this far and then they're gone, no further. certain components of this can move this far and no further, certain components move this far. This is the ecological field. When you start creating an analog farm and the farm begins its own ecological field as it matures, as the fields touch, then gene flow begins again. So here's another way of using analog forestry to get effective gene flow across your landscapes. Here are some species that have returned to the analog forest that we have created, and we look for indicators. Some of these indicators are soil snakes, because the soil snakes are the top predators in the soil. And if you can maintain top predators, if your soil is rich enough to have their top predators living in your soil, then it indicates that you are really doing a good job in restoration. And in analog forestry, we have a certification system called Forest Garden Products. It's globally accepted. It's a part of the IFOAM family of standards. And for anybody who's interested in that, again, that's a useful avenue. But what I'd like to leave you with is this. Currently, the leaves, it is the leaves we spoke about that provide a surface area about 4 times 3 the total surface area of land on this planet. This is the life support system of the planet. This is what creates oxygen. This is what cleans water. This is what fixes carbon, and they are being lost at an exponential rate. And what we have to consider is there is less than 10% of the surface area of this planet that trees and plants can grow on. The rest of the surface area of the planet cannot. So it is up to us, the people who are working with trees and plants, to understand the gravity of what's before us. And the job that has to be done, it's critical and it's essential that we have to increase the amount of volume of leaf parts, the total living biomass of every area on this planet must be increased if we seek a sustainable future. Now, when we do analog forestry, what it also does is it seeks to create the maximum leaf area. Why? We use architectural complexity. Vines, the epiphytes, the bushes, the shrubs, the rhizomatous plants, all that gives us a high potential to realize the value of living leaves. Because we are doing this because under the current economy, here, only the fruit has value, and has value once it's plucked and sent to market. This has no value. The leaves may have value also if it's plucked and sent to market. That's the old economy. In the new economy, the leaves have to be attached to the tree and producing oxygen, clean water, and fixing carbon, doing the job of the primary ecosystem services. Only then is it valid into this economy. So to do this, we looked and created a system where ecosystem services, where the value of ecosystem services can be realized. And it is represented by EarthRestoration in their life force ledgers that we are putting out. And we would like any of you who are interested, please come and get in touch with us. We'll show you all this is, I think is really valuable for all. And we will also work on a B2B ratio. That is, if you increase your biomass, if you increase your trees and your that's not good enough. Your increase of your biomass must keep a ratio with your biodiversity. As your biomass increases, your biodiversity also should increase by design. And that's what we can then put more value on. Now, if you look at this, this is this project, Life Force, operating in Sri Lanka. 7 ladies, these were war widows, working with 45 trees. These are the units that create primary ecosystem services, have produced 5,700 liters of pure oxygen and 2,000 liters of pure water given into the global commons at no cost to the global commons. Now, we are working at the values transactions of these, but this will show you the value of working with trees and plants and their primary ecosystem services to help farmers who we at the moment, we say, oh, just plant a tree and look after it, and we give them just $1 or something. Wrong. We have to respect the farmer for looking after the trees, for pay that farmer for doing that, and then learn how to use your primary ecosystem services as a reward into the new economy. Our company does presentations all the time on the details of this, and for people, the time is short here. For people who are interested, we'd be happy to help. And what I'm saying is knowledge, like I described before, for all the trees, the soil, the way it works, accelerates effectivity. And the acceleration is urgent because fixing the degrading environment is urgent today. I'd like to close with this. Please, all of us, consider that soil is not the ecosystem. The soil is a living thing. I described the weight of all the organs of the soil is a living thing. We have to learn to treat it as such. We have to water it. We have to feed it. We have to plant trees to feed it and look after it. And this is the huge lessons that we're going to have to learn in the future if you're going to keep this planet stable and sustainable. Good luck to you all. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ranil. So fascinating. Really, really appreciate all of your amazing work over the years. And I know we've got some questions for you after we hear from Nictê, so please do stick around.
Sure.
Yeah, certainly. So while we're still waiting to see if Dr. Ford will be able to join us, and if not, then we will certainly invite her to our next webinar, but lots to cover anyways, so not a problem. We're very lucky to hear from Nictê Milhose Dixon today. She was studying architecture and building with bamboo when she met Sean, who was traveling the world visiting different farms. And luckily they were working on the same farm and fell in love. And 4 years ago, next month, started Contour Lines. And since then have worked with over 135 different remote villages throughout Guatemala and are looking forward to really expanding their work. And perhaps one of the greatest benefits from their relationship has been the production of little Malky. As I mentioned, one of my favorite little humans. And it's really this next generation of amazing people that we are doing all this incredible work for. And the creativity and the sensitivity and the wisdom that Nictê brings to her work and to creating new value-added products from the trees and the fruits and everything that are growing through Contour Lines is just really showing the amazing potential of this work and how we can think outside of the box and really expand to spread this around the world. And so she is calling in today from their storefront and demonstration and processing center in Antigua, Guatemala. And it is just a beautiful place. I really recommend next time anybody is in Guatemala to go and visit. And Nictê, we're very excited to hear from you today. So thank you for joining us. You are still on mute, so as you get situated there, thank you for the presentation.
Hi, Hannah. Hi, John, and the rest. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Nictê Milhose, director of the Contour Lines Center. I'm working with the processing and marketing of regenerative agroforestry harvest. Contour Lines, I'm gonna share my screen now.
Should be able to?
Yeah?
Yes, we see it. It's coming up momentarily. And you may,
Okay, here
okay, yeah.
a few images from forest. Everybody can hear me?
We can hear you. We're not, at least I'm not seeing your screen in active mode yet. There we go. Perfect. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Controlines does agroforestry projects, transitioning the use of lands from slash and burn to regenerative food forest, planting fruit trees and legume trees with annuals in between and contour. We started 4 years ago. I have been growing exponentially ever since. Now we are in 120 regions. We started in a very hot climate area, but now we have all types of products from the different climates. And over 2,000 families have received our projects. With the partnership of One Tree Planted this year, we are planting 500,000 trees, and we hopefully plant way more from the next 2 years. Regenerative soil. For that, we have to work with smallholders that are the ones with the power to do this. But the farmers, for the farmers, this transition has to be economically viable. Because their land in this country, like their main activity is farmers, so their land is their way of having income. So it's not easy to make a transition, and that they cannot necessarily sell their products as that. The new generation now is losing interest in working the land. Many are selling the land and migrating. The selling of the land is like the worst thing that could happen, because the land is gonna go to big landowners, to palm and sugar and the big crops that we all know that they're not regenerative at all. The opposite. That's why we're here in the Controlline Center, that with the support of ARC, we are generating strategies for smallholders to profit out of their lands, developing markets for our farmers. These communities, like the rest of Latin American farmers communities, struggle with some challenges. Those are like the lack of organization, being remote, not necessarily distance, but the lack of infrastructure, like roads in the case of some of us, makes them very remote. Also,
Nictê, we're getting a little bit of a stutter.
Language and
do you
culture
maybe,
barrier make
do you
them even
maybe
more.
Could you
Go
maybe
off
turn
video.
off your video? Yeah, turn off your video
Okay.
maybe, if you don't mind, so we can hear you better. If that's
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, hopefully the sound will come through a little bit more clear.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes,
So-
that sounds great.
So another of the struggle of these communities is the language and cultural barrier. Like 99% of them, Spanish is not their first language. And some of them, they don't speak Spanish at all. Like it's the case of many of them, that only the men are able to express themselves and communicate, but the women's and the children, nobody speak Spanish. So that's one of the many challenges for them to profit out of their lands. Also, the lack of marketing skills. They're not necessarily can plan what is in the market, with what they can generate more income. So that's the struggles. In many cases here, in the case of like big crops in Guatemala, like is the non-case of crop and fine markets. They can like a crop that is not economically sustainable for the markets, for the farmers at all. So that's why we're here in our location in Antigua, Guatemala, at our store, restaurant, and cafe, to create ways to bring income to these farmers, to sustain and incentivize the regenerative transition to agroforestry. We also have a processing center where we buy farmers' harvest, create products, and find markets. Here in Antigua, Guatemala is the #1 touristic destination, health food scene. That's why we choose this place, because we think through here we can have the audience enough and the power to create more markets. Here, one way that we create markets is to serve our delicious recipes for our visitors. Here at the center, we do a very eclectic combination of recipes. We mix the traditional Guatemalan cooking with a little of my Brazilian family flavors, mostly with a bunch of invention from me and the team here. That is every day we invent what to do with our local products. Also, things are seasonal. So like every month we have a different opportunity to create something with our ingredients. We do a lot of pizzas, cakes. We do pão de queijo, that is a traditional cheese Brazilian bread. And also as many other bakery recipes that are adapted to our cassava flour, sweet potato flour, and other tuberculous. Also, we do flours from other crops that can be dried and ground, because we realize that flours, it's a very good way of preserving the crops. The most impactful impactful way of creating markets will be wholesale market. For example, we sell to local producers, like that makes probiotic drinks. We sell ginger, tea. Also, there's another tea local company that gets dry products from us. Here we have in the picture the example of cacao, that is Cacao Source, one maker and exporter of chocolate, that they have been doing a very fair trade purchase from our communities, creating a very good cacao, ceremonial cacao to export. Also in our center, we support other small projects that are aligned with our values, also from smallholders. Some of them, they continue with the organic, they continue with the local, with the like projects that share our values. Like that's the case of these goats that visit the center twice a week to deliver milk that we use in our products. Like this is the case of an apiculture in Petén. We very support the honey. Petén is the northern part of the country that has the Mayan jungle. So honey, it's a product that that they can profit out of their land without chopping down the forest. For them, is like they have the challenge that they cannot even touch their lands in some of the cases. So honey is a very sustainable way of profit out of it. We also bring goat cheeses from our nursery, Dwight Carter. This goat cheese makes it a change in our recipes here because we're not vegan, but it's hard to find dairy and meat products that are from regenerative projects. This is our center. When we just got it, and now a few months earlier, like 6 months later, here we also sell plants for other people interested in doing gardens here in town. We also sell designing work and agroforestry for other landowners here, like a more wealthy landowners that they can pay for their regenerative transition so they can support projects. Also, they're happy to pay for these jobs because they know that that as they transition in their land, they're supporting from other communities to transition it too. And here we also harvest a lot from our recipes. And I'm gonna the thing that we most done here in the center, the biggest activity, is to value add the harvest. We have here the processing center. So here I have some products. We make them like shelf stable and easier to travel, to transport, because as mentioned before, roads is an issue here. So as also there's many benefits of value added. One of them is to teach the farmers how to preserve their harvest, first for their own food security, and then in order to preserve it for longer, to have time to look for a better market. Because if we have a little bit longer of time, we can access like Antigua market that they appreciate the organic and the regenerative history behind the product. We do a lot of like small condiments that are like people can hear me.
No, you're good. You can continue.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great.
we
Thank
do
you.
like easy to travel condiments. The people love them. That is a good way of making it smaller, the harvest, and bring them in here. Here we have many presentations of the honey that I mentioned from the Petén forest. From some of our fruits, we're starting to make wines. This is from Dwight's farm again. We also make some here at the center. That's a way of getting a lot of value out of the fruits. Also, like the fruit by themselves, they do have a lot of value, but they're like very, they perecederos, they rot easily. So making wines and making jams, we do like spicy sauces and stuff like that. Way in preserving them, because it's hard to like sell them all in a week, and then we have to lower the price that much, and that's like the thing that we don't want for our farmers. Also, like like showing them how to do this stuff, they can go by themselves and sell this product. We know the case from a few of our communities that that they go and sell in their own villages, like spicy salsas and other stuff, because it's a nice thing to have on the table, so they can even sell it near their homes if they know other alternatives in what to do with the product. So yeah, that's what we do here. We create opportunities for farmers. Mostly we're looking for wholesale products. That's why the center is here. So wholesale buyers. That's why the center is here, because this town has like 300 restaurants, also has many other health stores, and we're starting to bring attention from these buyers, and they're starting to shop, and we can negotiate and see how it's good for everybody to, like, people wants to support this project, so we're seeing how we can make it economically sustainable for everybody.
Thank you so much. Wonderful work, Nictê, Sean, and your amazing team, not just at the center, but in all of the villages. Excuse me. I'm getting choked up about it. And it's going to be exciting as you're expanding and looking for location at Lake Atitlan to do a second center. So just, I have to testify how great the yucca flower pizzas are and how much I've been enjoying all of the salsas and sauerkrauts and everything from there. So thank you. We are now going to go to a quick poll to check in with everybody. And first to learn a little bit, well, I'm going to have Stella help me with the poll to see exactly what our first question is. And after you answer the poll, if you could then close it on your screen, that will help bring everybody back in. And then we will go to our question and answer. And so we're first wondering, how did you hear about this webinar? Because we're always trying to reach more people, and we certainly appreciate as people share these and invite in your networks. So this is very useful information for us. So we do appreciate you answering this. And I see there's been lots of questions, and so we'll do the best that we can to get to as many as possible in the few minutes that we have for it. But please do type them in the Q&A section down below, which makes it a little bit easier than in the chat. And those that we're not able to get to today, we will try to follow up with afterwards on our website and do our best to expand the knowledge and dive deeper into your questions. So thank you so much. And let's see, I think there we go. Excellent. Very interesting. Most heard about it in email and LinkedIn or referred by a friend. So wonderful. Let's keep that up. I would like to call in one of my dear friends and somebody who's been a family friend for many, many years, probably was the first one to introduce me to permaculture back when I was a young girl. So I certainly thank him for that. Warren Brush, who's been an amazing teacher around the world, and he has a question. So I am going to bring you in, Warren, so that you can ask your question live. And then after this question, we'll go to our second poll. So let's see, did that work? Are you a panelist now? Yes, excellent. If you want to turn on your video, that would be wonderful. Great,
Did
there
that
you
come through,
are.
Hannah? Hello.
Hi, and was the question for Ranil, I believe, right?
Yes, it sure was. It sure
Okay,
was.
Ranil, if you want to come back and
I'm coming
able to
back.
chat. Excellent.
Coming
You know,
back. Here I
well,
is. What's up?
Well, thank you for that wonderful presentation, and there were a lot of new learnings for me, which is I really appreciate. I was curious if you had been connected at all with the NASA GRACE project, which is it's a satellite imagery based observation system that they've developed around soil moisture and carbon. And I don't know if that is something that you're looking at as far as larger projects. It's something that we're also working with some of our work with resilience design in East Africa. So it was just a brief question, thinking about monitoring and evaluation of these projects. And yeah, so thank you.
Okay, well, I can respond, because what we're doing right now is when we are looking at photosynthetic biomass, we had to do physical plucking and weighing of leaves. When we go beyond year 4, now we are looking at LiDAR and we're looking at point cloud. So these are the technologies that we are basically moving into, right, to start assessing these things. So there's a whole new area that is opening up now, because up to now, people thought leaves are leaves. What the hell? There was no value to the damn things, right? They forget that that is the most important substance on the bloody planet. Photosynthetic biomass. And we got to give it value. If you don't give it value, you're going to destroy it. And this is one way. And I'd like to find people have another 1,000 ways to do it.
Well, you're a kindred spirit for sure. Thank you so much. And I think one of the things that I would love to see is the sharing of the monitoring evaluation tools across different platforms and different projects, because I think that's one of the areas that helps us improve that feedback loop. So thank you so very much.
No worries. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren, and great always to see you, and hope to have you as a presenter sometime soon. Excellent. So now we have our second poll is up. So please take a moment so that we can get a good feel for who is in the room, as I'm trying to bring myself back here. Okay, there we go. There's been some great questions, and so just trying to see both for Nictê and Dr. Ranil, I'm curious, what are some of the most, if you could say, important trees to the system? And I know, as always, a permaculture answer is it depends, but just from your work, I'm wondering if you could say what you have found as some of the keystone species that are most often come up as helping to fill the gap and these niches.
In South America, it would be the genus Inga, most of the trees, because Inga fixes nitrogen. It also breaks up the soil. That's at the root level. It creates a good living soil. But as you move up, the tree itself is very useful because high calorific value, if you want that. Then the flowers are used by both bees, insects, and butterflies. So the fruits are also used by insects and mammals and human beings. And they have in their leaves a thing called an extrafloral nectary. That is, right between the leaves, there's a little gland, on the stem. Those glands feed macrocanthus wasps because it's not enough sugar for bees, but the parasitic wasps feed there. And therefore, where there is the tree, then there's a biological control in the surrounding area too. So that way, it's a very useful tree as a keystone species.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Oh, yes, go on.
Well, if you wanted the other ways, the keystone species is structural, then you have to go to something You say in Sri Lanka, it is a thing like a Dipterocarpus or a durian. Why? Because that is the tree that rises above the canopy, and that's where the bees, the forest bees, nest on, because if they nest below in the canopy, they get parasitized. So they can't raise a brood. So they require to be safe. But if those trees disappear, they are the keystones. If they disappear, the pollinating bees disappear, the forest loses its vitality, and slowly the forest collapses. So this is two examples of trees to be used.
Wonderful. And such an important connection between the biodiversity, and as you mentioned, the importance of the biodiversity of the soil, and then the bees up in the air and the trees, all of it.
It's also structural diversity, not only biodiversity, structural. See, we have to think of the forest in these terms, not just for a few trees.
That's why I really encourage people to go to your website, to look at that chart, to not just be thinking about what are the native trees, but what are the different functions that are missing that can fill that need as then the native trees return. It's so key. Nictê, what have you found as one of the most important trees in your systems and your own?
I think if you ask me, or Sean, as Dr. Ranil, we think like the legumes and the one who fix nitrogen and that build our agroforestry systems are the more important. But if you ask the farmers, they're gonna tell you that the most important trees or crops is the one that they can profit and sell the most. So I think for now in our system, what the farmers believe is more important is the curcum, the turmeric, and the ginger, because I think one for them is very easy to harvest, wait at it, and know how much they're gonna make from it. Even the fruit trees, and it's kind of it is, you know, but it's like the short-term harvest, I think for them is the most important.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to both of you. I really appreciate all of your work and the knowledge that you've shared. And Sean and baby Melky there, you guys are just so wonderful. And please do put your questions still in the Q&A section. I know we could only get to a fraction of them, but I want to turn it back over to my colleague, John, so that we can get to the next section. And thank you again so much. And let's regenerate. That's what this is all about. So thank you. And John. All right. So glad to have you here with us today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks everybody, and excellent presentations, Ranil and Nictê. And it's also great to see so many different practitioners and agroforestry and regenerative people from all over the world. So thank you for everyone for attending today. So as Hannah had mentioned earlier, I'm a co-founder of Agroforestry Regeneration Communities with Hannah. We started just a year ago, and we're focusing in Guatemala and in East Africa. And a little about me, I've been a long-time environmentalist. I helped produce the film Kiss the Ground, executive producer of that you can see on Netflix and also Vimeo. And I've been a long time involved in both the environmental movement and also ecological businesses. So really enjoy helping see more food forests all over the world. And that's really that's what excites Hannah and I, just to see all the great work. And it's really, one thing about ARC is we don't start any projects. We work with existing projects on the ground. This is a little where our current projects are in Guatemala. And that's where the project you just learned about from Nictê is based in. And of course, Contour Lines is also looking to potentially expand in Belize and Honduras as well. And we're even getting interest in Mexico. And then also a lot of projects in East Africa. And one thing I wanted to share is it's a kind of something that's more and more people are realizing. Africa as a landmass is larger than China, Europe, and the U.S. But it's often depicted in maps as much smaller. And the other thing I'd like to say is Africa has so much of an abundance of natural resources, from grasslands to soils to biodiversity. Africa could be a net exporter of food, not an importer of food. And one of the reasons why is because of some of the longtime colonialist policies that have carried over, and that's one of the things we're changing, is to and each farmer and working with groups in East Africa. And just an example here of some of the work that ARC is doing in different things. Here's a slash and burn. This was in Guatemala, and then here's 3 years later with an agroforestry model. This is in Malawi from Permaculture Paradise Institute, which will be hearing a presentation from Mr. Biswick here shortly. And this is where a lot of farmers are clearing keeping the soil exposed, and not having anything growing in it, and then they're going to plant some maize. And here is an example of a fish bean nitrogen fixing tree, which can help reduce the need for using importing fertilizers. They can do a chop and drop. Let's talk a little about the impact of the numbers. We've trained 4,000 people through ARC. We've had 3,400 food forests planted, over 1.5 million trees planted, and we've been able to achieve $650,000 in donation, trainings, and plantings, including a big chunk from One Tree Planted. Want to thank them. And we found out the band Coldplay chose the Contour Lines project. So thank you, Coldplay musicians, for supporting all this great work. And we're looking to expand that more and bring more funding around the world. It is challenging to get some of this funding, and we're continuing to work on that. And we're hoping, because we could really use more funding to expand more plantings. And we also currently have 800,000 seedlings in nurseries or more in East Africa. One thing I just real briefly wanted to share is we seem to have a kind of a tunnel vision around carbon, but there's so many other issues when we look at climate, we look at environmental destruction, from biodiversity loss to health, overconsumption, et cetera. So I think it's really important for us to expand what we view when we think about the climate, when we think about the environment, not just only focused on carbon. As we've seen some of the earlier presentations, agroforestry really mimics natural systems. These are some of the touchstone words that we look at. Soil health. I've been noticing recently, like the BBC and the British seem to be really getting into soil health. So that's a welcome, because when many of us started working in the regenerative agricultural movement as a theme and as a kind of a way to move forward working with farmers, Europe was really not really focused on soil health as much, the farming and media. So it's good to see that. Regenerative ag, permaculture, syntropic agroforestry. And we've noticed that women empowerment has been very effective in the programs we do. So women are really at the heart of this. And then also all the knowledge, indigenous wisdom we can learn, the original practitioners of nature-based agroforestry and caring for land, and food resiliency, which is obviously very important. Here's some of our focus. At ARC, we work with a smallholder farmer, not larger farmers. Really, the average hectare could be 1 hectare or less. We help with best practices among them. We're working on value added to help some of the small farmers and the programs we have to add value, like what they're doing in Contour Lines, taking some cassava taking some jackfruit and making jackfruit pizza and selling that at a retail price at a center. And we're looking to expand more of that. And we also think by doing this value added, we're educating the local communities about the potential for these. We're also working on farming and funding, and we think carbon markets has potential. Right now, most carbon farming programs are geared for large-scale agroforestry or large-scale farming. So there hasn't been much carbon farming funding for carbon markets for smallholder. So our goal is to continue to do the work we have, getting paid for planting trees, and then look to expand with carbon markets down the road, but it's still kind of early on. So that's a little of our focus. You can follow us. We're gonna have you can follow us here on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and Instagram, and we're also gonna have a third webinar on agroforestry in October. And let's regenerate. Looking forward to the next three speakers. And our first one will be Mr. Biswick he's a founder of Permaculture Paradise Institute with his in Malawi with his wife, and they've been working very hard to educate their farmers. Recently put in 4 tree nurseries throughout the country, and so with that, let's welcome Mr. Biswick, and I will go ahead and end my screen sharing, and we'll look forward to your presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, John, for the presentation. My internet is not stable. Is it possible that maybe you play the video and then I'll be here for the questions?
Let's
Stella,
see.
do you have that?
Yeah, maybe Stella. Maybe
Video.
while Stella's bringing this up, do you want to just share a little about where the area you're from in Malawi, and a little on that until the video comes up?
Yeah, my name is Luwayo Biswick, founding director of Permaculture Paradise Institute. We are based in Malawi, in the central region, in Mchinji district to be specific. We are very close to the Zambian border. So Permaculture Paradise Institute is a local training and demonstration center, which demonstrates how we can use local available resources to address the challenges that mostly Malawians face and a lot of Africans face. So we've got a demonstration center, which is 16 acres. And we've got another new piece of land in development where we'd like to turn it into a business center, a farmer's market. We're working with 1,000 farmers apparently. And in July, that's next month, we'll be working with 1,400 farmers. So we support smallholder farmers. Okay, if you can't find the presentation, can you hear me clearly so I can just bring my presentation here?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can. And
And-
our
and while
amazing
you're-
Stella is here as backup if we need.
Yeah. And one
All right.
thing is, if people have questions, put it in the Q&A for this panel, and we'll take questions after the 3 presentations.
All right. Slideshow. So welcome to Permaculture Paradise Institute in Malawi, southeast of Africa. We are in Mchinji district, next to the Zambian border. So Permaculture Paradise Institute is a social enterprise demonstration and training center that promotes permaculture systems in Malawi. And we demonstrate how local available resources can be used to alleviate poverty, hunger, malnutrition, resource depletion, and many other challenges that Malawians face. We support and work with local smallholder farmers by providing intensive practical-based trainings on permaculture design. And we also, through our technical staff, we also support the farmers. We go door to door and support them on the implementation of these permaculture principles and practices. We started with 20 farmers in April 2021, and to date, we are supporting and working with 1,000 families or farmers, and we use the lead farmer approach to reach out to more farmers, but also be able to save cost of trainings. The lead farmer approach uses one farmer as an extension farmer, a model farmer, who after trained goes and train other farmers. So if a single farmer is trained, they go and train 9 more farmers, and they establish or create a farmer club of 10 farmers, and they work together, support each other on the implementation of permaculture practices. So far, since 2021, 1,000 food forests have been established with over 1 million different types of trees planted within a rain season of 2021 and 2022, which is this year. And we've got over 800,000 more trees on the nursery. And the goal is to train 1,000 farmers to plant trees, at least 1 million trees every year. So these are some of the farmers whom we work with. You can see them dancing and celebrating some of the trainings that we give them. After the farmers are trained, we provide resources and tools as a starter pack to the farmers in terms of wheelbarrows, shovels, legs, hoes, watering cans, and slashers. So these tools are used in the implementation of permaculture techniques after the training. But besides the tools, we give them seeds and seedlings from our tree nursery before they start their own tree nursery. And these are some of the trees that we give our farmers for free after the training. So this is just after the training. Right away after the training, we give them a starter pack of the tools and the variety of trees, both fruit trees as well as nitrogen fixing trees, fuelwood as well as timber. These are some of the trees and some of the farmers receiving tree seedlings from our tree nursery. And besides trees, seeds, seedlings, and tools, we also provide free animals to the farmers, which includes rabbits, chickens, goats, ducks, so that the farmers are able to access readily available manure for compost making from the animals provided. And this compost is used to grow food. And some of the trees which are given to the farmers are fodder for the animals, like the one you can see in the background of the rabbits. That is Lucina, others call it Rusina. So it's a great nitrogen fixer, highly promoted in agroforestry practices, but also very good fodder for animals, especially goats, rabbits, and pigs. So the idea is that the trees or seeds, seedlings, tools must be used to address challenges like this. So when you're working in Malawi and most of African villages, the surrounding of the homesteads are swept bare. There's nothing growing around the homestead. And this is a typical Malawian household. So the idea is after training, the farmers must be able to rejuvenate the fertility of dead soils like this into something like this. So this is 4 months difference after permaculture training. You can see a food forest in miniature established by this farmer. So you can see the efficacy of our trainings and the support that we're giving to farmers. Within a short period of time, farmers are able to realize benefits, and they're able to transform dead land into productive oasis land, as well as improve their lives. And these are some of the harvest from the farmers, from the forest, which are created by the farmers after the training. So within 3 months, farmers are able to harvest vegetables. Within 4 or 5 months, they're able to harvest some sweet potatoes. And after 12, 15 months, they're able to harvest papayas, bananas, and most of the short-term or medium-term fruits and vegetables and herbs and nuts and legumes and staples. And beside fruit trees, these are some of the nitrogen fixing trees that we have been giving to our farmers. This is fish bean. Others call it Tephrosia vogeli. We gave them Tephrosia vogeli and Tephrosia candida. These short-term agroforestry promoted leguminous plants, trees, which are planted, incorporated within the seasonal farmlands, especially maize fields. So this is one of the women farmers standing next to the fish bin, and would like to thank agroforestry regeneration communities for the support. They supported us to help farmers plant these fish bin trees. So this is the same field you saw in John's presentation, showing a cleared seasonal farmland, maize field. All the trees are being cut, all the grasses slashed, and all the forbs, everything is burnt. But then within a single season, the same field has been transformed after planting the fish bean, which is fixing nitrogen, dropping biomass, helping protect the soil and erosion. And now you can see a whole lot of mulching on the ground, which has been kept without being burnt. So besides the trees planted there, there's a lot of biomass on the soil that's going to protect the soil, but also help rejuvenate the fertility of the soil. So that's the first step. So if we are able to transform farmers' foods within a short period of time like this, that's a clear indication that we can transform Malawi using permaculture practices and principles. But besides transforming Malawians' homes or bare grounds and the like, we've seen a great change in the diet of the people or the farmers under our projects have been trained in permaculture design. At first, these farmers used to eat corn-based meal, which is called nsima in Malawi. And it's just a whole lot of staples with a little bit of vegetables in the corner. But now you can see after permaculture training and support from us, the farmers are able to access a diverse range of foods from which they are able to make nice, delicious meals for the benefit of their own families. And then this also contributes a lot to the national development, because if we have healthy people contribute a lot to the development of their own country, its own country. So that's one of the things that we've seen. Besides transforming bare lands into forests, but we're also able to see the change in terms of the diets from the farmers. Thank you so much for listening to this short presentation. And if you've got questions, you can type your questions. I'll be around to respond to the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, and I think one of the great results is the diversity of foods that the local farmers and communities are able to to access. And I know you've been doing some training on the nutrition and cooking. So much diversity there, and that's going to lead to better outcomes, better healthier babies, better health overall. So so this work is not only about climate focus, but it's also about making people's lives better and just making more fun eating foods. It's so great to eat all sorts of different diverse foods. So great to see that. Thank you. And there'll be some links in the chat section for your Facebook and website for people to learn more about Permaculture Paradise Institute and your work. So our next presenter is Jackson from Tanzania, and I've known Jackson for several years. Recently put on a webinar that brought people from around the world, and been focusing on agroforestry and the environment. So Jackson, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Jackson Buzingo from Tanzania. I'm a country representative of a small Swedish and Tanzania organization. It's a small international organization. We're working on the accelerating regenerative agroforestry in order to fight poverty. Okay, may you share my presentation, Stella? Wow, great. Yeah. As you can see here, the heading of my presentation, increasing resiliency and adaptive capacity of smallholder farmers in Tanzania. For the past 3 years, we're able to register a small non-profit organization, One More Salary, on the basis of assisting smallholder farmers being able to fight poverty, particularly in enriching the soil, because most of the farmers are now facing the soil depletion. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So as you can see here in the photo, due to the soil depletion all over my region here in Tanzania, the farmers have been forced to go to the forest reserve so as to invade the forest reserve for cultivation activities. So this problem has led to the game reserve as well as the forestry services keepers to find these farmers and to prosecute them. But due to this problem, we have been addressing that we can be able to assist in a way that the farmer can be able to make a living through better practices in farming through regenerative agroforestry. And right now, we have been advocating about different methods of making compost as well as the natural pesticides that can be able to assist the farmers able to scale up regenerative agroforestry and regenerative agriculture practices that can work with nature and not against that. Because chemical fertilizers, pesticides are one of the reasons that has led to the soil depletion in these regions. Next slide again. So please, you can move forward, because I have little slides there. So as you can see there in the picture, so these are the farmers whom we trained them about compost making. So they have been enjoying these methods and how well they can be able to nourish their farms through compost making. So in every cultivation season, when it comes, they just spend most of their time collecting rubbish and some of agricultural residues in order to make a compost. And when they come to the cultivation season, they just go to their farms and supply to their farms so that the agriculture, the agricultural practices can become in a normal and a regenerative way. Another slide again. So apart from my training that I got from Syntropic Agroforestry, I use also to train more than 100 farmers about the regenerative agroforest and how it works. So the farmers are so interested, and most of them has also demonstrated in these past seasons they cultivated the farms in this method, and then they have already seen the impact of regenerative agroforestry on how to work with nature, and most of them are now happy that they can be able to use the small amount of funding or money they have or they got from the producers. They can no longer rely on chemical fertilizers, but they can just use for other family expenses. So this has helped much them to move in a more regenerative way to grow crops and also to protect their crops against the pesticides that were used by using chemicals and money that they already reserved. They have kept it to use in a bad methods that they have to. Next slide. So as you can see there, that was November 5, 2021. That's the farm that I demonstrated to them. That this is the area we're gonna making a food forest here. So on November 7, I finished it to demonstrate to them, and we planted some crops there. And as you can see in the next slide, so after some months, you can see there was a full difference of about what it was and how it was looking at the time in January. But later in April, we are able to make harvest from that farm. So that was just a farm that has been converted from the bare soil that can be seen there as it was before to the farm that has a lot to give or a lot of things to give because of the restoration of biodiversity from scarcity to abundance. So this is what I can say, that we should work with nature, not against it. So local communities should be able to be supported, particularly smallholder farmers, to make this new regenerative practices that are better for their livelihood as well as for the soil, because the current situation of agricultural model is not assisting smallholder farmers, rather than destroying the reality on the ground, and they cannot be able to thrive in the near future. So right now, I can say also, I thank ARC for the support that they give. Particularly right now, we are now having a tree nursery that we are planning to give to the farmers in the few months ahead. So food forest can be well grown, and the potentiality of establishing forests as well as the soil fertility can be put in place. Once the number of these smallholder farmers are now changing and making the transition from the agrochemical farming that they used to practice to more regenerative farming practices, that we are continuing to train them. Thank you so much. This is all I can say.
Thank you, Jackson. Appreciate your passion and showing people in your region about the benefits of agroforestry. Yes, I think it's all these regions face significant challenges, and then we'll just we're going to go on to our next speaker. I know you were having some technical challenges, Patrick, with your internet. Are you able to come and go live here, Patrick? From the Refarmers from Uganda.
I think we actually might have just lost Patrick.
Okay. Yeah.
I tried to pin him. Oh, no, there he is. Let's try this again. Patrick, are you able to come on? And if not, we will have you on for next webinar. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, sad to say, he
Yes.
oh, let's see.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, we can hear you
Hello.
a little, so go ahead and if you want to go ahead and start. Glad you were able to make it.
Hello.
You know,
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello. Hello.
we can hear you barely. Can you go ahead and
Hello.
start your presentation?
Hello. 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 Yes.
Sean,
In.
it really might be best to wait till our next
I'm
webinar.
Patrick Paul.
Mhm.
What is it? We wait until the next. Oh, I
Well,
go
Well, just
ahead.
why don't you just talk for a couple minutes, see if you can, we are running a little late, but see if you can talk for a bit, if we can hear you. Let's just try it one more time.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Patrick Paul Kidega for Refarmers here in Kitgum, Uganda. I'm up to present some of our activities on today's webinar. If Stella could play some of those slices and we see how we can explain. If I'm not clear, then we kind of give it another shot next time.
Yeah, good. We see the slides up now.
Okay, right. Slide 1. You know, we've been working currently with grandmothers and youth and school-going age children in order to have a community that is regenerated through planting of more trees. So we've been doing workshops with the grandmothers, and in those workshops, we've been telling them how to select the trees which are viable for the communities. Among them, we've been training them about cash crop trees. Those are the fruit trees that they may not only eat, but at one point also sell. As we also look at the other types of trees are one of trees that probably takes around like 5 years to grow. So we've been encouraging them so much to deal with cash crop trees. Those are the fruits. And in some of these trainings, we are doing a lot of unlearning since many of us had not gotten very, very much knowledge on trees. So the grandmothers are up, and then we teach them how to have their own nurseries. Like at the moment, we have decided, since we can't have every one of them have their own nursery at home, we've decided for them to have what we call an in-house nursery bed. This is put under what we put water for drinking in. So we teach them that whatever kind of fruit trees you have eaten, say oranges, pawpaws, you can not just throw away the seeds. You better throw it under those pots, and then they germinate trees other than sourcing for trees, which might look very expensive. So this training has been very fruitful. And as we talk now, around 120 grandmothers have their own in-house nursery bed, which is very practical and is realistic. And maybe in 3 weeks' time, they should now be planting their own fruit trees. And to me, according to ACT and their assistants we've got, this has gone a long way. As you can see from the second slide, Stella, please. Second slide. Yeah, so that's the second slide. We can't be teaching people to learn and do things if we don't do it ourselves. So at home, we have our permaculture demonstration tables are locally produced and they're organic. Yeah, that I'm coming to that. That is our
Are we able to go to the next slide? Is that what
I
needs
think
to
we're
happen?
having a problem with the network. Maybe I present, yeah.
Mhm. Next
I'm
slide.
also having problem with my network. So maybe you give me the second webinar. I could have been, yeah.
Well, yeah, if you want to
Yeah,
just wrap up.
the next
We
slide,
can-
please.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe I wrap it up. We are doing a lot of activities that is transforming the community and getting the people's mind tuned to being self of the trees. Like in the many trainings we have done, a young woman gave a very powerful quote after the training that if she was 45, and she said, at my age, if I planted trees earlier on, I would be rich by now. So that is the power of ACT and then Abundant Heart. When we are reaching out to people and people are now beginning to understand and know the importance of tree planting, that is economically supportive, and also working with the environment and trying to regenerate. Have a lot of cuttings of trees. People cut trees for charcoal, but they don't plant. So everyone is being encouraged at least to cut one tree, plant 10, cut one tree, plant 10. So this nursery bed project has come in time and is going to be handy. At the moment, we have almost close to 100,000 seedlings, which might be ready like in 2 months. They would be able to get matured. And this project won't just be free. We will not just be distributing seedlings for free. That won't help because we have seen in very many attempts, whenever you give things freely, people don't appreciate. So we shall be charging them a little bit of money so that they feel they can own the project. So we shall be charging a little bit of money and they take the trees, and that money will also help support our project since this is not purely a non-profit entity. It has to generate also money to keep learning. So this is what I can wrap it up with. Next time, with a good time and a good network, we could present more. Thank you everyone for listening in and being part of this great movement. Together we can do more. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. And with all the challenges with the tech, but you did a good job there. Yeah. So just had a few, we're going to just wrap things up here. Have a few questions. One, Mr. Biswick, are you available to take a question? Um, can you hear me there?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, yeah. So, so there's one kind of a two-part question. You mentioned, this is from Tatiana. You mentioned giving all these trees and animals. What is the process for farmers applying for this training? Are there any problems associated with conflicts between those farmers who have received this help and those who've not? And then, are you training folks with new concepts for these farmers, or whether some of these practices already were used in the region had been used by their farmers' parents or grandparents?
Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. We used to pick and choose any farmer we wanted to attend our trainings, but that invited a lot of trouble, a lot of problems, because most of the farmers could attend the training, but when they go home, they could do nothing. So the approach that we use apparently is that we go into the villages and see those farmers who are already self-motivated, who are doing something on their own, and we bring them on board. We just collect names of those who are self-motivated and have done something, a little something, not too much, but just a little something. So those are the ones we take names and they become lead farmers. Yeah, so that's the approach. Most of the techniques we're teaching the farmers and the crops that we are promoting native crops, and if, for example, we are talking organic farming and crops, everything is customized, and we focus on traditional crops, traditional knowledge, traditional practices. We start from there. So our agroforestry is customized, is Malawi-based. Our horticulture is customized, is Malawi-based, and we focus on crops which are local to Malawi, because we know Malawians would understand that better because their ancestors, their parents used to grow the same crops and they grew up eating the same crops. So it's easier for them to understand what we're talking about instead of bringing something from elsewhere. What was the other question?
One other question was, do you have support or interaction coming from ICRAF or other government organizations?
It's got ECRAF in Malawi. That one's got ECRAF in Malawi. Well, not support as such, but we've had lots of farmers working with ECRAF and working with other organizations come for permaculture training, because ECRAF promotes agroforestry. It's international agroforestry, whatever, but they don't promote permaculture. So permaculture is more of a design science. It's not a technique-based approach. So we've worked with a lot of organizations locally, including them, but not as a partner, not getting funding or any support from them, but because we're working in communities in which they also work. So working with the same farmers. So at some point, yeah, we do train their farmers in permaculture. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate that. Someone had asked me, with the projects you've been working with so far, what do you think the appropriate role of applied technology, digital, chemical, hardware should be maximizing smallholder profitability as well as the overall impact of agroforestry? We think some of those are drone cameras, which can allow then for storytelling. We think it's really important to show visually what farmers and our practitioners are doing. So we think that could be that's good, and I think it's an evolving area. Also, sometimes wheelbarrows in Malawi has been helpful for the farmers. Not only can they use it for transporting some trees and compost and other materials, but the women are using it for transporting water from in their communities, and they thought that was a benefit. Hannah, I know someone had raised their hand. I'm not quite sure how to do that here.
I think they've actually left. That was
Okay.
Lewis looking for it. So
Right. Yeah. And there was one other, thanks. There was one other question. We had a lot of questions, but one for Jackson. What do you think your next steps are to take your program, improving your program?
Yeah, thank you. I just say that one of the impacts of my programs were also included in the slide, but it was not shown. But we had a lot of harvests of the farmers. The situation right now is growing because this is a new approach that we have been trying to implement on the local level. But also we have been facing a huge resistance from the government, because what I have been advocating for to the local level when I reach to the government, I'm not being supported to the maximum, because they say that what I'm telling the farmers is going against their policies, particularly on supporting agrochemical farming. So I have a lot of impacts on the ground, because the farmers have proven themselves that regenerative agroforestry works by themselves. But the impact on the other side is also in a negative way. But I'm still going on with my implementation of the programs, because I think once the farmers are able, has been transformed in themselves from their mindset on practicing these new paradigms, I think it will be best for themselves to move forward instead of relying on what the government policies is saying to them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jackson. And I think that's one of the issues that the reason, I mean, these concepts of agroforestry, this is not new. This is not like I mean, I know a lot of like different people are going, oh yeah, we could do agroforestry. Well, we've known about this for many decades, but the lobbying efforts from the synthetic chemical industry, vis-a-vis from America or other European countries, is very intense. Bill Gates has an organization that spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year in Africa, and they're not supportive of regeneration. So it's a question of education, but also looking at long time, greed and other kind of human follies. We do have a question here for Lois. Her hand's up. I'm trying to let's see. I'm going to allow you to talk. So, or Lois, Robin, you had a question?
No, I'm just reading what you've written because I'm old and have hearing problems. I haven't been able to understand what much of what has been said, because there are also accents and so forth. And so I'm just reading all of your good information and trying to put together in my mind what you're really doing and what's being accomplished. And I support the effort very much. It seems like it's a pretty remarkable and wonderful effort, and very needed in the planet today. I just am sorry that I can't interact better because of my hearing problem, and the fact that some of you have accents, and no matter how slight, it makes it hard for me. But this is a very interesting project, and I have myself made a film along these lines. It's called The Dirt on Climate Change, and made here in California, and not specifically planting, but I'm very into the subject. And I thank you for what you're doing and for going out, and I assure you that most people can hear and understand you much better than I can.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming to this event and your comments.
And
yeah.
as a follow-up, I will see if we can get the transcription from this webinar to include in the email that we send out. So for Lois and other people, that might help to be able to go back and read it. So I'll see if Zoom will let us do that. So Thank you for being here. And thank you to everybody for being here. It's really been an honor. We thank you for those of you who have stuck around. There's still quite a few of you. And so, John, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to share?
Thanks for everybody. I know this is very challenging times for communities all over the world with with the war in Ukraine impacting food supply, impacting price of fertilizer for farmers who are using that. This is why our work is so important. Thank you for everyone who's contributing and coming today. Follow us on these social, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. and also our website. And I know there was suggestions of a Facebook group or WhatsApp group. So we're going to come back and think about that and see which one would be the best one. And thanks for all your support. And we'll be doing another one in October. And thanks again to all the presenters and everyone who attended today, and let's regenerate.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.